What's going on, my people? You're listening to The Score, an urban music education podcast hosted by Eric and Justin, where we discuss tips and strategies on how to become a more effective, compassionate, and culturally responsive music educator. What's going on, my people? This is Eric.
And this is Justin.
And we're your hosts for The Score. This is episode number 1. On today's episode, we're going to talk about who we are and why we chose to do this podcast.
Yep.
Let's jump straight into who we are and our experiences as music educators. So, Justin, kick it off. Tell me about your experience as a student.
All right. So, my experience was, it was cool. It was definitely weird through middle school. I definitely was one of the only African-American students in the band program. There were a handful of us. So it was kind of like I was the oddball out in a lot of ways because I hung with my people, if you will, playing basketball, hung out in the neighborhood, did all that stuff. But then I also was a student that went to band practice, and I had sectionals, and I carried around a bell kit in 6th grade. And so I think I had a great experience. Now looking back on it, I probably should have pushed a little harder on certain things and, asked for clarification and asked deeper questions about, like, how could this be used in my context? Just because music was first introduced to me in church. So I was playing drums and hearing choirs sing and hearing organs and bass guitars and all that kind of stuff. And so by the time I got to 6th grade, music had a different definition and context to me. And so I was learning kind of like this Western classical, percussion formality of things. But I had already had this, I guess, if you will, basic training, if you will. But I had a great time. I had a fun time. I was committed. I'm one of those people that if I like it, then I don't really care what everybody else says, even though, in my culture, it was, oh, you should be hooping. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And so it was great, though. I had good band directors. My 6th grade band director was an older white lady. So you can imagine what that was like. In middle school, junior high rather, 7th and 8th grade, I had a guy by the name of Reese Nagai. And he was I think what he did well was he made us excited about band, and he made sure that we were, responsible for whatever our roles were. I think as a percussionist, in that early stage of band for me, we're not in the stage now where there's a percussion director coming from the middle school and coming from the high school. It was literally the band directors teaching us and making sure we knew how to play rhythms and keep time. But the specifics of the art form, I didn't really get that until probably when I got to high school. In high school, I had the OG in the game, Mr. Tim Taylor, and he was my band director and definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. I had 2 percussion directors there, Mario Diaz, who was a gigger. He was from the district, went to Lamar, and he was our percussion director for the fall. And then my last 2 years, I had this guy that really wasn't that great by the name of Jonathan Ritchie, who was a Sam Houston grad, but it didn't really work out too well.
I got you. Yeah.
But overall, I had a great experience. If I could go back and change anything, I probably would have listened more intently to Mr. Taylor in regards of pushing myself in uncomfortable spaces. I think I did that. I did the solo and ensemble. I did some region stuff, but I think did some jazz region stuff. But I think I could have pushed myself further. But I also think that kind of stems from middle school. I didn't have anybody there to say you should be doing this. I was just grinding off my own talent, having fun playing at church, and doing the band thing. So as far as middle school, high school, 6th grade, I had great training. Man, I was around some really quality teachers. And I learned a lot of stuff, and they worked really hard. And Mr. Taylor he's one of those guys where you're going to do what he tells you to do because he knows it, and he gets it, and he wants success. And so we were able to do that, man. I experienced getting sweepstakes from, junior high all the way through my senior year of high school. And it was just a norm. And so I think that created this culture of me wanting to be successful and a desire to be at the top where it wasn't like we're going to get a 2 or we're going to go in there and bomb in sight reading. It was like, this is the way you prepare a band. This is how a band should sound. This is what a band should look like. And so subconsciously that became my mantra for becoming a director. And I would like to think that I mimic a lot of what that was and who they were to me as directors now in my current state as an educator. So,
and this is Lamar Consolidated, correct?
Lamar Consolidated, correct. And the great city of Rosenberg, Texas.
He's stressing the word city because I refer to it as a town. But
most small-minded people would do that.
We'll probably have a whole episode on that topic. So my experience was different, and actually substantially different. I'm a product of Houston Independent School District. I attended Hamilton Middle School and Lamar High School. I had 5 band directors at Hamilton,
Wow.
and I had 5 at Lamar. And as you heard, I didn't move schools. So that would be a topic in regards to retention in our schools. So I had Troy Eads as my 6th grade band director. I had 2 substitutes my 7th grade year. And then I had Jack Lucas, who was actually recently retired from HSPVA and came because he was a community member and lived in the Heights and wanted to just continue to serve the district and our school. So he came and took us on my spring semester, my 8th grade year, and he was probably one of the bigger influences for me to continue in music. My primary instrument was saxophone, and so I went to Lamar High School. I had 2 band directors my freshman year. Both of them left by my sophomore year, and then I had Eli Smith and Jesse Espinosa my sophomore year. Jesse had taken the assistant job the year after that at Waltrip, and then I stayed with Eli Smith and Mr. Davila.
Wow.
And so I didn't have that UIL experience at all in middle school. It was actually quite different in regards to even the level of the production that we would put on. Our concerts were not that good. It was literally, I think, 12 of us in 8th grade. In the entire band program in regards to the quote-unquote advanced band. And then in high school, I think we broke 100 members maybe once my senior year when I was drum major, and this was a 6A high school, at the time 5A. We did do UIL then, and the best ratings we got was a 122 my senior year when we did Channel 1 Suite as a marching show. So my experience was definitely different in regards to just... you can say lack. I experienced lack from instruction to even consistency of directors, which goes into my story as an educator. So tell me a little bit about where you did your undergrad and or if you're going to pursue some graduate studies.
So my undergrad was done at the Prairie View A&M University. I really enjoyed my time there. Obviously, there could have been some things that could have went a bit different in terms of preparing me for the work of being an educator. But if I had to do it all over again, I would. And the reason why is because sometimes the lack of what you don't have creates the desire to push for what you need to get.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think me and you could both attest that there were some things that if we lined up our program and our tenure there with those of our contemporaries that might have been at U of H, Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, UT, and other schools, it would be drastically different. There were some things that I felt like on the win side could have been better in regards to, repertoire, in regards to teaching modes, teaching methods, how to tune this, how to do that, how to clean a piece of music, and knowing the PML list and understanding like these are pieces we play, these are pieces that you should program for a high school or middle school program. I don't think we got that. I think on the marching band side, obviously it's entertainment, showmanship, pageantry, and I think that that's great in its context because in college, marching band is marching band, right? It's no competitions. Whether you do show style or you go to a school that does core, the concept should be the same. And I think we got there in one of those weird places where, God rest his soul, Prof. Ed was on his way out, and there was some other leadership happening. And I think that we wanted things to look a certain way because what we viewed of the band when we were in high school and middle school, and they weren't that. There was some unnecessary things that probably happened in terms of entitlement and in the name of tradition that I think hindered us. Like the band could have been better. There were some years and there were some moments where the band was great, but the experience, the familiarity, the family, the just the style to be able to say I marched in an HBCU band, and we had our good days. We had our good days and our bad days like any program, but I think there were some things that lacked in the private lesson, and and I love the department. It's not a bash, but I think sometimes we got to be real about what it is. I learned a lot of things, but what I learned was how to work in spite of lack. That's probably one of the best things I would take away from my experience at Prairie View. People like Dr. Cornelius, Dr. Taylor, Dr. Selden, these people prepared me. And by God's providence, they put me in different positions. I can remember Dr. Selden, you know, I took a private lesson with her on piano. I can remember Dr. Cornelius put me on so many gigs throughout the inner city and just doing gigs that weren't in the context of me playing drum set, but in me being a percussionist. Dr. Selden leaning on me to do different things in the choral program and stuff like that. So it was a great experience. I'd do it all over again. You know, I would probably spend some more time seeking out extra help, networking with people at U of H and trying to sit in on things. But man, it was great. As far as graduate work, I'm not doing anything in the music education world, but I am pursuing a seminary degree because I'm playing. But I am doing some things in regards to church because that's a heavy part of my life and my call. Even within the music education role, I think there's some ministry there. So I'm pursuing a master's of divinity, and so you know that's a little bit of what it was.
Okay, similar. Obviously, we're colleagues from Prairie View. I got my undergrad there, and I shared some similar experiences in regards to the lack that I experienced there as an undergrad. But I'm also completely present to the fact that I walked in with lack in regards to my preparation, my musical preparation from the high school. I never took a private lesson on saxophone. I did take several on trumpet because our band was so small that Mr. Smith had asked who wants to take private lessons on trumpet, and I was able to do that under Miss Gwen Juarez, who ended up being my colleague at Heights these past 3 years. And so I definitely got to a point, I think it was after my first semester, my first year, that I considered transferring somewhere else. And I had a conversation with Dr. Cornelius that sat me down, and there was a phrase that he told me that I still live by to this day. It's not about where you're at, but what you do while you're there. And I kind of removed the limit that I had self-imposed on myself, and I kind of just skyrocketed and did extremely well. I was one of the first that had graduated in 4.5 years. I took my private lessons obviously serious and didn't take them for granted. So shout out to Joseph Colarusso, who's now at St. Edward's University, who was the adjunct professor at the time. And so that experience in itself, as opposed to walking out with this kind of disdain towards my department, I flipped it and I said, okay, if I experience that, I want to make sure that somebody else after me does not, or at least I can open doors, because the professors that he mentioned, Dr. Selden, Dr. Cornelius, and Dr. Taylor, completely impacted my life, that to this day I still honor and acknowledge them for the success that I've been able to have as a music educator. And the intimacy in regards to conversations and accessibility,
that's good.
To knock on their door and talk about current events or personal issues that I was going through, allowed me to feel like my voice was heard.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I've made it a conscious effort to say, you know what, I'm going to open doors for somebody else. So Prairie View made me, and I have it, and I wear purple and gold on my back. And so that for sure is something that I will never lose. In regards to some graduate studies, I've gotten my master's at Lamar University in educational leadership. I did this with the consideration of one day serving in the capacity of some type of director of fine arts, or working at the district level to advocate and pursue fine arts for urban districts. I did a year as an assistant principal because of that opportunity, and that's when it brought me back to teaching. And so now I'm pursuing a doctorate, DMA in music education at the University of Houston. I've been able to go part-time the past 2 years because of my professional responsibilities as being a director of bands, but now I'm going to be going full-time, taking at least 9 hours this fall and in the spring as well, which with the flexibility in my schedule is going to allow me to complete my DMA hopefully within the next 3 years.
So I also don't want you to miss this. We both had a great opportunity at Prairie View that I think probably helped us more than we knew, and we both were able to conduct and direct a show that featured the music department and the drama department. And I think when that was placed on my shoulders, I knew that it made me like, okay, I need to go home, study the score. I need to look at the script. I need to know. And I think developing those relationships with people like Dr. Selden and Dr. Cornelius allowed them to hold us accountable and to really learn how to be leaders and work in spite of some of the training that we didn't get. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
I know when you directed, I was playing in the show, and I looked up to you in a sense of like, man, this guy doing it. You know what I'm saying? And then turn around, fast forward that next year, me getting ready to come out, Dr. Cornelius says, you're directing the show.
Yep.
And I think them telling us this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, they didn't give us an option. That's true. Yeah.
I think it forced us to, we kind of like an animal in a corner. So we had to fight our way out, learn, ask hard questions, be embarrassed. Dr. Selden definitely embarrassed me in many rehearsals of like, I don't know where your ictus is. Where's the entrance?
Mm-hmm.
Are you giving us a prep?
Yep.
Why are we not starting?
She did the same thing to me.
You see what I'm saying? And so those are things that I think when I got in the band hall and I started conducting and directing and teaching, those things were in my mind, so it helped me prepare and study better. So I just don't want us to miss.
So I'm glad you said that, because that leads into our professional career as music educators. I landed my first job because of that gig. It was the summer before my student teaching, and I had my own apartment in Houston already, because I was already planning on moving back for student teaching in Houston. And I was kind of throwing my resume out there. At the time, I was still DJing, but I knew I needed to make some more consistent income. I had already gotten offered some type of like camp director for an all-female medical camp. I was going to get paid like $20 to $25 an hour, and I was willing to take it. But I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, I need to get in front of music. I need to get in front of students, because that experience says everything. And so my resume landed on the executive director of Project Grad, who then forwarded to their music director. And my interview went very well because of that one thing on my resume. And it said, tell me more about this student conductor experience. And so I shared and told her I conducted a whole week of a musical, and they were blown away at the fact that an undergrad got that opportunity. Yeah. And so I want to acknowledge, because at the time I did not like doing it. Yeah. Because I was supposed to only conduct one song for my final. And Dr. Taylor and I just talked about this at TCDA the other day, and my senior recital was 2 weeks away.
Oh,
and,
stress, bro. Stress.
Yeah, after that first rehearsal, and I think it was the opener, and it was multimeter, and she comes up, and actually all three of them kind of turned and whispered to each other, and they come up and said, so yeah, change of plans. You're gonna conduct the whole show. Wow. And I was like, I'm gonna what?
Wow.
And I said, let's reconsider that, because my senior recital's in two weeks. They're like, nope, you're doing it.
Wow.
And so I had some intense sessions with them. So thank y'all for doing that, because as Justin said, man, it gave us this whole new experience. And the awesome thing is that from what I hear, they're still continuing that tradition.
That's something that if you are a student at Prairie View and you are matriculating through the process of being a music educator, I would implore you to go talk to them to see how, A, can I play on it? It'll push you in areas of your musicianship, and B, can I direct this? Whether that's your junior or senior year, even if you are preparing for your senior recital or, whatever, juries, like put yourself in that heat and that pressure to learn, to grow, and to really be the best that you can be when you come out and ready to enter the workforce.
So tell me about your first job.
All right, so my first job. So so Eric is my brother. And you guys are going to grow with us on this podcast journey. We're going to become family. But there's one thing you need to know about Eric. I'm doing this podcast because Eric has a God-given gift of drawing people to himself and getting them to do whatever. And so I graduate spring 2011. Eric is already in the work field. We had some dealings with each other throughout our time at Prairie View. We had some classes together, just common talking, hanging out, whatever. So I'm putting in apps everywhere. I'm putting in apps, trying to get jobs. I'm working at Office Depot at the time. And so Eric finds out I put my app in. He hits me up. He was like, hey, man, there's a job opportunity at Sharpstown, where the head director of bands, Brenda, who's now at LSIC, was there. She did a great job there. And he was like, she's going to be out for a little bit of maternity leave. They just need somebody to go in, just kind of keep the program afloat, be an adult supervision, yada, yada, yada. I was like, yeah, let me do that. I'm trying to get into the workforce. I'm trying to get into my field. So I'm all signed up. I'm turning in apps, and I'm starting to think like, man, am I ready to just jump into high school? Because my dream was to teach middle school. I was like, man, I'm going to just see. I just got to get in. Once I get in, then I'll find my way. So he ends up calling me back. Eric says, hey, man, I know I said, I had some things at Sharpstown, but, man, I got about 200 kids over here at Hamilton. I wanted to know if you want to come and teach with me. And I was like, but what about, he was like, man, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. But would you be interested? I was like, yeah. So my first job experience was literally, we hear a lot about it in the HBCU culture of, those that are out there will open the door for you. That's literally what happened for me. Like somebody who knew me at Prairie View, knew I was interested in working and getting my feet wet and doing the work. He called me up. I got the job. I literally started like into August, beginning of September. And that was my first experience. And I think what helped me was we grew in proximity to each other to the point where like we was doing CrossFit.
Yeah, we had no business doing that.
We had no business doing CrossFit. But what sticks out to me in that time, and I've told Eric this before, but the fact that he was bold enough to say, okay, you don't do this well, you don't do this well, you need to show up on time, you need to be more efficient with this, you need to do that. And I think that that's what helped me. Now, he could have easily allowed me to come in, allow me to play to my strengths and not really hold my feet to the fire in regards to growing as an educator and as a professional. But I think if you heard earlier what he said, he wanted to open the door for people and give them something that some things were not given to him. And so that's what he started. He was like, all right, if we're going to do this, if you're going to do this, like, you have to be able to do this. And not from a place of him being perfect, but more so like he had some opportunities before and he knew, okay, these are some things that I can grow on in this new position. And so Hamilton was like, man, it was life-changing. It was life-changing to the point where I would spend, are we going further or we just stop?
Yeah,
right?
Keep going.
All right, so it was to the point where like Eric, we took bands to UIL. We did the all city stuff. We going to region meetings. We doing 8th grade nights. Like we were in it. Like we spent a lot of time at the band hall, and man, it was just life changing. It was life changing to the point where, let me tell you about Eric. Eric, then I consider Eric. This is for all my Bible people out there. Eric is a Paul. If you read the Bible, Paul is a person from the Bible that did a lot of great work in the New Testament, but he planted churches. He would literally go here, plant a church, get them up and running, go somewhere else, plant a church, get them up and running, and then run back through those churches and be like, all right, you need to do this better. I didn't tell you to do this. That's who Eric is. Eric is a modern-day Paul of the band world, right? And he'll get into that when he explains his career. But with him going into my second year, I was feeling good. I was like, okay, cool. I got Eric here. I can lean on him, really grow some more. Because my dream and vision was like, oh, I'm going to do this assistant thing, produce music, yada, yada, yada. God said different. Eric tells me, before we end out the spring semester, we had finished UIL. We had a great run that year. Just made a lot of history. He says, man, I got this job opportunity, man. So mind you, I'm a first-year teacher, getting ready to go into my second year. And this man is telling me he got an awesome job opportunity. So he goes, he said, yeah, man, and this is how I knew he was doing it to me all over again, but I couldn't stop it. He said, there's some things on the inside of you that I just think that could be used here in this environment. And I don't want to push this on you, but if I felt comfortable leaving this program in somebody's hands, I feel comfortable doing it. It was like a super like Morgan Freeman, like it was this moment. And so here I am. I'm like, oh, I guess, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want the kids to have to get used to somebody new. So needless to say, I take the job. He moves on, goes to high school. And I spend the next 7-8 years. Part of that, I was there by myself. Had some assistants here and there. But leading that band, and I grew so much, man. And I'm doing this podcast. Me and Eric are conjoined. He could call me right now at 1 a.m. and be like, yo, I need a kidney. Can you meet me? And I would get up, and my wife would be like, where you going? Eric needs a kidney. I'll be back, But in all seriousness, it was a God ordained thing, man. And I was at Hamilton, grew the program, kept the UIL thing alive, the jazz culture alive. All city players, region players, developing kids that went on to high schools that would feed his program. When he was at, all of the different schools he was at, my kids would leave my middle school and go there and would be good players, solid players that were ready to go. Okay, these are 9th grade players ready to go. And my goal was to, because in HISD there are no feeder systems, my goal was to prepare competent and comprehensive musicians for wherever you went. So that way you left Hamilton, you had an understanding of your instrument, scales, how to read music, understand the rhythms, and knowing how to be a bandsman. And I think I would like to say that I accomplished that. I think kids were able to go to high school.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, they did what they were able to do. And so, Hamilton always has a special place in my heart. And then also had some time at my last school, but we'll get into that. But Hamilton, and then I'll explain to you how God used Eric again.
So my first gig was after that Project Grad summer program. Sharpstown Middle School was my first job. And I got the gig with no band students, so I was able to grow that program in one semester to 100 students. And then I got the opportunity to go and serve Hamilton Middle School. And honestly, I only left Sharpstown because I was told that the school was going to become 6th through 12th and become Sharpstown International. And at that time, I knew I was feeding Brenda, who was at Sharpstown High School, and I did not want to take away any growth or students from her. So I got the chance to serve my old middle school, and I took over the band program, and I'm going to estimate, I think it had around 110 students remaining, but they hadn't gone to UIL, I think, in over 40 years. And so that first semester, I did it by myself. The spring semester, I was able to bring in Balaji Siba as the assistant. After that year, he got a job, full-time elementary teacher, and then that's when Justin jumped on, and I did only 2 years at Hamilton. Then I got the opportunity to serve at Waltrip High School as the assistant director, and that's the first year that we did the inauguration events and celebratory events that were going up there. So I got a lot of experience and knowledge from that role, and then I got a chance to go and serve Jeff Davis, which is now known as Northside High School. Yep. And I'll never forget it. That school and that community and those kids hold a huge part of my heart and my career and my advancement in my career, because I'll never forget. I think the Friday before the first week of school of band camp, I think we had 18 to 20 students, and we had a full-time assistant. By the time at the end of my second year there, we had made a 1 at UIL. We were 5A varsity. We had 2 concert bands, 2 big bands. We had kids making region, both in jazz and in concert. And so, just exposing those kids to leadership training at Texas A&M Commerce, et cetera, several of which are now in higher ed, have graduated, or even are music majors. So shout out to all my students from Davis, now known as Northside High School. And then I got the chance to go do a year as an assistant principal. And I had been getting asked by some of my colleagues, like, you ready? You ready to move up? You ready to move up? And to be quite honest, the reason that I did that was for personal reasons. I was dealing with a lot of health issues. There were things, my wife was just kind of encouraging me to have more time to spend at home, because I was a newlywed when I took on the director of bands jobs at Davis High School. And so I did a year at Frank Black Middle School as a dean, and the dean over 7th grade and fine arts. But it quickly got to a point where my wife was like, why are you doing this if you're not happy? And it was one of those opportunities that I got to actually do a model lesson for one of my choir teachers there, and I loved it. I went home and told my wife all about it, and she, and that's when she told me, she gave me the blessing, like, go for it, go back in the band hall. I don't care where it's at. That's where you're gonna be happy. We'll figure it out. And so I got the opportunity to become director of bands at Heights High School, which is formerly known as Reagan High School. And I'm gonna be quite honest, that was my dream school to serve. I was zoned to Reagan when I was in high school, and I'm gonna be real, I avoided it. I was a GT Vanguard student. I had really good grades, straight A's, and what have you. And so I got the chance to go to Lamar over Waltrip, and I knew Lamar was academically better than Waltrip, and so my brother had gone there and several of my cousins, and so I knew that was the school to go to. But I'll never forget that I went to Mr. Lucas, my 8th grade band director, and said, where should I go? And he said both bands would be great, but academically Lamar would be better for me. So I got to go there. But my best friends went to Reagan, and so I was always at Reagan. I DJ'd all the parties. I'm actually in Reagan's yearbook, even though I didn't go there. Wow. But my best friend Joel can tell you, one of the things on my bucket list was going back and serving that program and creating something of value. So I took over Heights in 2016 with only 56 returning members. They had just gotten a 3-4-5 at UIL, concert sight reading. Kids were dropping like flies. Morale was low. And so I inherited a program that needed a lot of love. And that's going to be, we'll go into depth about Heights High School on our next episode. We're going to do a whole episode on just talking about what we did and our strategies and that we implemented on making that band of value.
Yes, sir.
So that leads me now. I'm now in a place that I'm going to be pursuing my DMA full time, and that kind of gives you an insight into who we are and our lives as music educators. As we take a break from our discussion, we're jumping into the segment called In Rotation. During this time, each of us will get an opportunity to share what we're currently listening to, favorite artists, genre, album, playlist. If you have any recommendations, drop us a line on our social media platforms at podthescore or send us an email, podthescore@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. All right, so we're going to go jump into what we're listening to, what's in rotation. So, Justin, tell me about what's in rotation for you right now.
Man, to be honest, so I'm listening to some different stuff. One of the first things I'm listening to is BJ the Chicago Kid. Just dropped a new project. He's a real eclectic kind of R&B guy, taking it back to, real authentic singing, but great songwriting, great production, and all of that, and infusing so many things, whether it's R&B, hip hop. You got some gospel themes in there. You got some jazz stuff in there. So it's really dope. I've been on his new project, and I've actually been listening to some older stuff because my wife is getting ready to work on her second project. And so I've actually been listening to her project just to kind of get some ideas of how we want to extend some of the songs, what are some new twists we want to put on some of the songs. So she has a project out called The Truth About Walking. So if you are on Apple Music, any platform, check out her music. It's really dope. And then the last project I've been jamming the last few weeks is Molly Music, his second album. I can't even think of the name of it. But I think it's called Transition to Molly or something like that. But Molly Music is what we would call like a Christian, based artist, but a lot of his music is really just life music. It's like dealing with like real life things, whether that's relationships, whether that's how do I deal with culture and society, whether that's dealing with, insecurities and things like that. So I kind of been on just this hodgepodge of like, soul, R&B music of a sort with hints of hip hop and all of it. That's what I've been on. I'm pretty sure you expected me to say I've been listening to like the Region Band stuff and Honor Band stuff, but contrary to popular belief, band directors do not sit around and listen to, PML music. Do I listen to those things? Yes, but 9 times out of 10, if you get in my car after a band practice, after a sectional, you're not gonna hear.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not gonna hear Standards or Bombages or anything like that. So that's what I'm on right now.
So I just came back from the Hill Country, and my wife knows.
Light flex. That's a light flex.
Yeah.
Go
That's when you pop that chair into the frio.
Right.
But Xochitl knows me better than anyone, obviously, and she knew that I needed a little getaway, a little R&R. And so I listened to, on quite honestly on repeat, Jay Pettis' new album. It's his 25th anniversary, called Contigo. And one of the reasons I love Jay Pettis and his music is, one, they refer to him as the voice, but his influence as well, that you can hear the influence of soul. He sings and he crosses genres. And so the most recently, his album has this amazing sax player that's on there. I need to find out who that is, but just the implementation of just kind of stretching what Tejano could be instead of just the 1-4-5 or the 1-4-5-6.
Yeah.
And so his music has always been a big part of my life, even though that's not necessarily culturally relevant to my family because that's Tejano music instead of Norteño. But definitely been jamming that album, and it bridges his career from the past that he's done and the success that he had with David Lee as an independent artist, but then now going into this, celebrating his 25 years within the Tejano scene.
Dope.
All right, we're back. In this section, we're going to discuss why the podcast. So a lot of people are probably wondering, what are these two guys from Houston linking up in an office to record this? And so I want to kick it off in regards to my experience with podcasts. I had very little. Quite honestly, I only used it to catch up to some of the sermons from my church when I missed on a Sunday.
Amen.
And so I remember it was weeks before I was taking off on a trip to Mexico, and we were doing kind of this. It was an all-out road trip for the holiday break, and so we were going to San Luis, Guanajuato, San Miguel de Allende, and then coming back to San Luis, and then driving back to Houston. And so I just kind of asked Justin one day in the office, like, "Hey man, can you put me on game on some podcasts to listen to?" And he put me on to several, actually, but one that resonated with me, and I'll never forget this experience because it's a podcast called Pass the Mic. And so I'm listening to it. My family had fell asleep. I had been driving probably 22 hours now, And my wife Sochi wakes up and she's like, "What are you listening to?" Because it has a lot to do with the African American and the Black identity. And so she woke up to a podcast about black barbershops. And so Sochi's like, "What are you listening to?" And I was like,
wish I could have seen
you
your
know,
face.
but I'm like, well, let's be real. I go to Fifth Ward and I go to black barbershop, so it applies to me. But just, joking with her in a sense, but that's real. Shout out to Bo. And so, I realized, I was like, these are two academics. These are two scholars speaking in a voice, in a tone that I could relate to.
Right.
Without, how could I mean, let's be real. They weren't code switching.
Right.
And that to me was flabbergasting, if you could say. Like I was like
taking it back.
Yeah, just kind of like, what, you don't have to code switch. You don't have to speak a certain way. And so that brought me back home. And when I'm talking to Justin, I was like, hey man, that podcast was amazing. To this day, I still listen to. Even just to get a perspective from the academic scholar that operates within the Christian world like they do.
Yeah.
But, I started listening to several music ed podcasts because of that.
Yeah.
And so I'll never forget, I'll push play and I'm not bashing my colleagues. Quite the difference. They are content masters. They've had success in their environments.
Yeah.
But then I got, I was like, that's not how I talk.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
then, just let me try to mimic one that I found one day. It was like, welcome back. We are in the music ed mentor.
Boring.
And I was like, man, even the intro got me falling asleep. And so that alone, I brought it back to Justin, and I got his take on it. So that for me was even just creating a voice. At the same time, without the necessity to code switch and somebody to tell me you speak well for a Latino male.
Yeah.
So tell me your perspective on why the podcast.
So hopefully y'all heard in there how he once again pulled me into his plan of action. Man, why the podcast? I think because me and Eric, we spent a lot of time together over these last few years of our career, but we spent a lot of time having like honest conversation. So are we talking about, is he telling me what I need to do for the day and my, his expectations for percussion and what I need to be doing, and think about this when you teach? We're doing all of that. But at the same time, we're also having these side conversations that talk about, okay, race in the band hall, culture in the band hall. What is the Latino student who is dealing with a parent who doesn't understand why they do what they do, but really just sees it as a waste of time because it could be working, right?
Yep.
Or dealing with the African-American student who is being forgotten about in his home, and band has become just a safe place for them to feel welcomed and affirmed. So when he talked about the podcast, I remember I'm sitting at my desk, I was like, we literally do that every day.
Yeah.
And I said, we need to have a platform where other directors that, I'm going to just say it, that look like us, that sound like us, that do some of the things that we do outside of being a band director,
and or serve settings like us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where they can hear and attest to it, because everybody's not what some of these podcasts are. And it's not to shame them, it's not to knock them, that's their context. But I would also say that our context is becoming the norm and will be the majority, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 years.
For sure.
And so I think why is because people need truth, people need honesty, and people need solutions for problems that districts don't really give. Like, they'll give you a lot of, oh, you should do this, you should go watch this person, you should go do this, XYZ, but that still doesn't reach the intent of what's happening in my band hall. That may go past notes and rhythms and, phrasing and stuff like that.
Sure.
So it was a purpose behind us talking every day, and I felt like the world needed to hear it. So here we are. Yeah.
So we are going to be providing solution-based strategies.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I've experienced as an educator was the fact that I'd go to conferences and conventions, and I would be intentional about going to every Title I urban, under-resourced, any label that you can think of that applied specifically to my setting.
Yeah.
I went to those, and I went to all the other ones as well. But when I went to those that were specific to serving my environment, or the fact that I was a product of that, were all about, and not all of them, but several of them were all about complaining and venting.
Right.
But then I didn't hear any solutions.
Yeah.
And so, at times I kind of wanted to just stand up and say, how about we try this?
Right.
And but at the same time, my issues with my identity in the music education prevented me from having those opportunities to just kind of offer to some of my colleagues because of the fear of how I thought they were going to view me as an HBCU alumnus, as a Latino music educator, as an urban, because that's not who you kind of see on the pedestal at our kind of conferences. And so we want to make also this information accessible. And the medium of podcast is extremely popular now. Yep. And so why not? And I thought to myself, why not? Both of us have the ability to, and then we have the knowledge and the experience to back it up as well. And so our careers have allowed us enough success that what we're going to be providing is a lot of what we've done, but at the same time, we're going to bring in colleagues and lean on them to say, how did you handle this situation? How did you, if you had this issue, what were some solutions? So that way you can try and you can see if it works. Because one thing that really resonated with me at this past TBA, after my presentation, one of the directors from Kansas, she came in from Kansas to the convention, and she said, "Thank you for making me feel heard. Thank you for making me feel acknowledged. Because every time I ask for help or solutions for the environment that I serve, I always get told, just leave."
Yeah. And I think that's tough because the just leave is what me and Eric preach to our kids in regards of that option is always there, but you shouldn't take that option, right? So we talking to our kids throughout the band year. It's easy to quit. It's easy to give up on this dream or whatever we're working towards. But it's harder, but it's going to be more efficient for you in your future and in your process of whatever you're becoming in your growth to continue. And I want to let you know that just from us both being in the work, like it's possible to be successful. Yeah. Like that's not a far out thing. And the success, you define it year by year. And whatever your vision is, that's your success. UIL, marching, region, those are things that we need to all aspire to. But you got to know your context. And I think what we were able to do well together and even in our careers apart, where we were able to assess, okay, here's where we are. Here's the base level. Here's where we can be within a year. Here's where we can be within 2 years. And you just got to be committed to work that, because better students, better funding is not a real thing. Yeah. I think that's a false thing. I think you have to be willing to create better students and be responsible and steward whatever you have well. So
agreed. Yeah. So you're going to be hearing guest artists. You're going to hear clinicians. You're going to hear retired directors. Yeah. One of the biggest things that I want to make sure that I create a platform and a voice for sometimes these lifelong music educators that served urban or under-resourced or Title I settings that kind of just retired and never really got the acknowledgement that they deserve. So I want to make sure. Exactly. And he's one of the main ones that comes to mind. And so, we want to make sure that you reach out to other people and share our podcast with them. These are things that it's a work in progress. So we hope you join us on this journey. Yeah. Get to know us. Reach out to us. Make sure that, if you have any questions on something that we may have experienced, we want to make sure we bring it to other listeners and see if they have anything. Look out for episode number 2 coming real soon.
Yes, sir.
And this is something that we're gonna enjoy doing and sharing with you guys. Long overdue, but at the same time, we wanna allow our passion and our energy to come through the microphone and hopefully reach your music classrooms and your band halls. This has been another production of The Score. Connect with us on social media at podthescore. Send us an email, podthescore@gmail.com, or visit our website, revivalmusicproject.org. Intro music by Justin McLean. The rotation and outro music by Ben Borges. And as always, let's continue to impact these lives through the vehicle of music.